Congratulate yourself, because you've just made the best decision you're likely to make all day. You've tuned into the voice of reason with Tugboat Calhoun. Tugboat answers your questions and brings you the news that you need to know, because Tugboat knows better than you. And now, here's Tugboat.
Toot toot. Tugboat Calhoun here, towing in another load of pants-free podcasting by daybreak. So, Tuggernauts, you're probably wondering to yourselves, hey, where in the world is Tugboat Calhoun? Since it's been, a year or so, give or take a few months, weeks, days, since you've heard old Tugboat on the Tugcast here. Well, even though I don't feel as if I owe you an explanation, I'm willing, however, to share with you where I've been. You see, there was an election recently. Not so recently, but back in November, about 6-ish months ago, again, give or take. I had been on the air a year-ish or so ago, and I had been supporting fellow radio broadcaster George Norrie of Coast to Coast AM fame. He wasn't running for president, however, that's still who I was supporting. Of course, not financially or actively, just morally, psychically, and on other planes of existence, other planets, the usual. Even though old George wasn't running, I expected there would be a certain someone who would win. That someone did not win, which really threw a wrench in my plans. You see, Tuggernauts, what I had been doing was preparing for the job of my dreams. I wanted to be the FEMA camp director for all the dissidents, constitutionalists, gun owners, anybody who didn't vote for Madam Secretary. I went to the post office, which is a government building, and used the free Wi-Fi there to do government business. I went on the FEMA website, that is the Federal Emergency Management Agency, and they have these independent study courses. So I went and did every single independent study course because someone, doesn't matter who, whether it was Cousin JR or not, whilst at the gas station, because where else would you hang out around here in FEMA Region 7? Not allowed at the Walmart. Well, it's not that I'm not allowed there, it's just when I go there, oftentimes I see Confederate flags in the parking lot. I have PTSD, just rampant anxiety, panic attacks. I pass out, I hit my head, and 9 out of 9 lawsuits have been unsuccessful, so why would I continue going there when nothing good's going to come of it? Anyway, someone, maybe Cousin JR, maybe not, told me if I did every single FEMA course, it would unlock a FEMA Camp Director course. And now with that certification in hand, when and if Madam Secretary were elected, I would be in a prime position to be the director of the FEMA camp, and that probably pays like $25,000 a year. It's a government job, they pay pretty well. Well, as you know, the Russians egregiously and secretly, because we haven't been able to prove it yet, but CNN will do it one of these days, somehow the Russians interfered with the election and Madam Secretary lost. Well, Tugboat Calhoun, if he's anything, is not a man of convictions. He is a man on the outside of the Illuminati, but still in the Illuminati. I recognize and worship power. And there's really no power in character or moral virtues, just power in power. So I became immediately a supporter of President Trump and began to investigate Pizzagate. Well, I guess I investigated a little too good, since I ended up being taken as a hostage, taken prisoner in an Illuminati sex dungeon in the basement of a nondescript pizzeria. And Tuggernauts, well, that's where I've been since the election. Well, shortly after the election. Luckily, about 18 hours ago or so, I was rescued by fellow broadcaster Alex Jones. Thank you, Alex, for the rescue. And Tuggernauts, that's that. So, if you're done violating my privacy, as was done in the Illuminati sex dungeon, I will just continue on with the program as if nothing happened.
Now, It's time for our first segment, Voice of the Heroes. Here on The Voice of Reason with Tugboat Calhoun.
So you may remember from a year ago or so that the first segment of the program is the Voice of the Heroes. And our hero this week or this day, I haven't worked out my new contract yet, so I might be doing this daily. I don't know why I would commit to doing it daily, because you and I both know that I am completely unreliable. I don't know that I would be able to do it weekly, even if I was supposed to do it daily. But we'll see here. I will just say the hero for this program is Trudy K. Richardson. And she is also being nominated for the Stepmom of the Year award, so good job, Trudy. Trudy was a passenger in the seat of a Pontiac Grand Prix early Saturday evening when the vehicle was pulled over by a St. Petersburg, Florida police officer. The 55-year-old Richardson, the patrolman noted, was observed holding a blue glass marijuana pipe in her hand. Richardson would later tell the cop the pipe was actually the property of her stepdaughter, who was apparently behind the wheel. When Richardson spotted Officer Caricia Martinez standing next to the Pontiac, she placed her hand with the pipe into the front of her pants and proceeded to place the item inside of her vagina. Richardson, Martinez added, was repeatedly instructed to stop placing the item into her vagina and yet persisted. With regard to the pot pipe, Richardson subsequently stated that she put it in her PUSSY at the request of her stepdaughter. A remorseful Richardson spontaneously stated that she was sorry for not listening and putting the pipe in her kitty cat earlier when requested by her stepdaughter. So why, you may be wondering, is she, as in Trudy Ann Richardson here, why is she our hero of the program? For two reasons. Number one, for being honest in ratting her stepdaughter out. And two, for her persistence, even while being instructed by the police officer to stop attempting to conceal evidence. She didn't let that stop her. She continued putting the drug paraphernalia inside her body to save her stepdaughter, who she had just ratted out, with her exemplary honesty. So, cheers to you, Trudy Ann Richardson, Stepmom of the Year.
Good news, comrades! Now is the time for your favorite segment, Voice of the Proletariat. Here on the Voice of Reason with Tugboat Calhoun.
And now, Tuggernauts, is the time in the program where I answer your questions. So you can send those questions to me, Tugboat Calhoun, at the following email addresses. I'm at toottoot@tugboatcalhoun.com. Tugboat Calhoun is a real website. You can go there. You can fill out the little Toot My Horn questionnaire, and it'll shoot an email right to me, Tugboat Calhoun. You can also listen to all of our previously recorded programs there. Connect to us on social media through tugboatcalhoun.com. If you want something more conventional, you can email me at Calhoun@yahoo.com. Send me your questions. I will answer them on the program. Maybe. I'll see what I can do. Anyway, the first question is from Cyrus. Cyrus wants to know, Tugboat, do you think it should be illegal to make fun of our president? He goes on to write more here, however, I don't need to read any more of it. I have my answer formulated already. Yes, Cyrus, I have long been an advocate of policing speech, curtailing free speech. You look at countries like Thailand, Turkey, places where you can go to jail if you insult the leader. And that's where the world is going. As they say, as they do in Asia, so do the rest of the world. So yes, I absolutely think it should be criminal to criticize the president. I also think that if you deny climate change, that you and your family should go to jail. And in general, I've long propagated and proposed, and I can't think of any more P words, but really anyone whose speech irritates me, if it's something I disagree with, then yes, it should be illegal and you should go to jail. Thank you for the question, Cyrus. I can hear some of you now, talking about what about the Constitution? You can't even spell Constitution because you went to public school. And so did I. There are egregious laws. Do you know that you can't attend public school if you're 21 years or older? I was in my second junior year, and I was pretty sure that I was going to pass. However, I was unceremoniously ousted from that school because I turned 21. But I've done every FEMA independent study course, so who's the loser now? Oprah, probably not the Oprah, judging by the email address here, but Oprah wants to know, Tugboat, how many books have you read? 0. Thank you for the question. Doug wants to know, Tugboat, can a boy wear lipstick? Yeah, Doug, there's no prohibitions that I know of that prohibit the wearing of lipstick by boys. However, you're also assuming someone's gender when you look at them and say, that's a boy. Can they wear lipstick? Sex and gender, I learned from the government, are different things, and there are any number of genders. So many, in fact, they can't be counted. Sex, however, that is a biological indicator, but identifying people by those is racist. Thank you for the question, Doug. Leah wants to know, Tugboat, Melania Trump is 24 years younger than Donald Trump. Does that shock you? Oh yeah, Leah, it's totally shocking to me that a multi-billionaire is married to a supermodel decades younger than him. This is, I think, the first instance that we have seen since billionaires have become a thing. This is probably the first documented instance of a billionaire marrying a supermodel decades younger than him. So you can probably hear it in my voice, I am completely shocked by this. Ellie wants to know, Tugboat, does hell really exist? Well, Ellie, have you ever been to New Jersey? Jersey or any airport ever? If you have, you wouldn't have asked me that question, so I see that you haven't been. However, if you want proof for yourself, yes, go to Newark, the city, or the airport. I'm sure they have an airport there, and I'm sure it's hellish. Thank you for the question. Wingnut, not likely a given name, but I'll go with it anyway. Wingnut wants to know, Tugboat, what goes well with a big 12-ounce steak? Tomato soup. Tomato soup and steak. Thank you for the question, Wingnut. Zeta wants to know, Tugboat, if Trump worked at a zoo, what would be his position? First things first, Zeta, President Trump. He has a title, and it's president. And secondly, he would be the trainer of the bald eagles. And they would be the best bald eagles there have ever been at any zoo, anywhere in this or any other solar system. They would gather and deliver fresh fruit to children. They would give tours and lectures of the zoo. And they would shit on terrorists. And they'd be vegan and gluten-free. Thank you for the question, Zeta.
Unfortunately, coming up, we have your least favorite segment, Voice of Vermont, here on the Voice of Reason with Tugboat Calhoun.
Unfortunately, we have a story here by someone whose pen name is Wilson Ring. Can't be a real name. Writing at Boston.com. For decades, the tiny, out-of-sight beach at the south end of Vermont's fjord-like Lake Willoughby has been known as much for its nudity as its views of the clear, cold lake. I bet that's what all the bathers say. Oh no, it just looks like this because the lake is cold. No one believes that. Now, regulars fear its charm could be the area's undoing. Concerned about cars... Excuse me, it's a Boston.com website, I have to read it like that. Concerned about the cars that park along the highway... Can you imagine? People actually talk like that. Concerned that the cars that park along the highway by the lake during the summer, the state is offering a redevelopment plan that is being criticized by people who use the beach in the surrounding area. The plan includes clearing land to make way for parking, boardwalk, trails, and restrooms. Dave Timson of St. Johnsbury, who has been visiting the area that includes the beach for decades, said the plans would destroy the area. I understand they say they would need to do something, but I do not understand why they need to cut down 4 or 5 acres of trees, he said. We're supposed to be preserving the forest. It's unclear how much land would need to be cut down for the work, But Michael Snyder, commissioner of the Vermont Department of Forests, Parks, and Recreation, said the original plan was aimed at making the area safer and reducing pollution from the highway reaching the lake. Now, people park wherever they can find space along the side of the highway. Shayla Vogel, of Newport Center, Vermont, said she fears the state's proposal could turn the area into a state park that could eventually require paid admission, forcing out the skinny dippers. For decades, the tiny beach at the south end of Lake Willoughby, the 5-mile narrow body of water flanked by 2 steep mountains, located about 20 miles south of the Canadian border, has been a haven for people who like to frolic nude. On a recent weekday afternoon during the first extended stretch of hot weather this season, Caitlin Como and Michael Zarnowski of Thornton, New Hampshire, made the 90-minute drive to Lake Willoughby so they could enjoy the nude beach. "I'm not a fan of tan lines or covering up," Como said. Zarnowski said Vermont's laws are more relaxed than the neighboring Granite State. "We find places to swim naked in New Hampshire, but it's just us by ourselves," he said. "You can't really be relaxed if people show up." So there you have it. So there you have it, Tuggernauts. Vermonters concerned that their very cold nude beach will be impacted by development. Why would you want development in an area that is blighted by heroin and lack of industry? No. No development here. We just want to swim nude. And, interestingly enough, by cutting down trees between the highway and the lake, it will reduce pollution. I don't know how, but that's what the article said, so it must be true. It's on the internet.
Wondering what Tugboat and his Illuminati buddies are up to? Find out in this segment, Voice of the Tugverse, here on The Voice of Reason, with Tugboat Calhoun.
WorldNewsDailyReport.com states, Thailand, tourist wearing fake shark fin harpooned 9 times by villagers. An American tourist was almost killed this morning by local fishermen who mistook him for a bull shark. 27-year-old David Smith and 2 of his friends were enjoying the first day of a 2-week vacation in Thailand and had decided to spend some time at the beach. Around 10 a.m., Mr. Smith moved a few hundred meters away from his friends in order to put on a fake shark fin and pull a prank on them. He started swimming toward the beach with only the fin emerging from the water, provoking an instant reaction from local fishermen. More than a dozen fishing boats filled with men armed with harpoons encircled the young man only 20 meters away from his friends. They fired dozens of projectiles in his direction and speared him a total of 9 times before they realized their mistake. According to Francis McKenzie, one of the victim's friends who witnessed the incident, the fisherman reacted extremely fast and fired without thinking. Mr. McKenzie said his friend rapidly emerged from the water, screaming from pain, but he had already been hit by several harpoons. Quote, "He got his head out of the water and yelled, 'I'm not a shark,' but he was immediately hit by 2 other harpoons," end quote. The fishermen finally understood that Mr. Smith wasn't a shark, and they rapidly carried him to shore and called for help. The Thai National Police Chief, Somyot Phumpang Mong, said he was very happy to hear the victim had survived. He declared that fishermen who injured the young American man acted to defend swimmers and no charges would be filed against them. Fake shark fins have been popular items among pranksters for more than 20 years and have caused several unfortunate incidents. In 2009, 2 women were severely injured in Australia after being trampled by a group of swimmers running away from a man with a shark fin. In 1996, a man was hit by 16 bullets and killed in Florida after approaching a private beach while wearing a shark fin. Written by Priscilla DeGregory and Emily Saul at the New York Post. Clearly, it took more than one person to write. Man beaten with hula hoop after standing up for couple. A Brooklyn man who confronted some rowdy panhandling performers was attacked with his own hula hoop on Sunday after standing up to defend an older couple who had declined to donate to the dancers. A bandaged Jean-Luc Wolfman, fake name, said he had just given his unidentified assailants $1 when one of the men turned on the tiny elderly couple as the train pulled into the 14th Street Union Square station. There was a tiny Jewish couple there, and one guy starts screaming at them. "I will knock that beanie off your head," the frazzled 48-year-old said as he was escorted away from the Transit District 4 station by paramedics. "I stepped in and was like, 'Back up.' And the guy just turned on me and said, 'I will f*** you up. I will f*** you up,' the Fort Greene resident and fellow street performer explained. I tipped him $1, he continued. When they wanted to fight me, I got out my hula hoop and I asked them to have a dance-off. He took my hula hoop and he hit me with it and I started screaming, Wolfman said, gesturing at his wrapped head, which still sported a visible gash. The fight somehow made its way onto the platform, where Wolfman continued screaming for help. He took my guitar and threw it down the stairs, the performer lamented. The one guy left and the second guy was like, "You better stop screaming or I will f*** you up." His assailants remained at large on Sunday evening, the authorities said. You know, Tuggernauts, dancing has never solved any problems. Additionally, if you could pick any item to be beaten with, a hula hoop would probably be the item that I would pick. Think of any other item, and it's going to hurt more than a hula hoop. Let's think. Shoe, alligator, hearse, stuffed animal, beets, carrots, potatoes, any root crop, really. Carton of milk, a hammer, jigsaw, circular saw, table saw, hacksaw. Those are all things that, I'm just freeballing it here, those are all things that I would not want to be attacked with on a subway. Hula hoop, I can deal with. Hula hoop, feathers, a pillowcase full of newspapers. Not like a full newspaper, I mean like crumpled up newspaper, like if you don't have wrapping paper and you want to give a child a gift. You pretend like you forgot to put a gift inside it and it's like, oh no, it's just newspaper, how embarrassing. But who has money for children's gifts? Come on, not in the Bush economy. So I'm not sure how he got beaten with a hula hoop. However, Jean-Luc Wolfman managed to be beaten with a hula hoop while screaming. And lastly, at the mirror.co.uk by Scott Feng, Kung Fu Master uses his penis to pull enormous helicopter in latest bizarre world record. Yi Hongwei dragged a huge aircraft more than 33 feet with his genitals, when he only intended to notch 26 feet. A Kung Fu Master who dragged 7 cars with his penis has become a new world record holder by towing a helicopter even further with his penis. Several hundred people, as well as several adjudicators, watched as Yi Hongwei, who goes by the stage name Yi Wei, towed the heavy military helicopter with a rope tied around his genitals. Well, genitals? So like penis and scrotum? Well, that's cheating. Footage of the incredible feat shows him stuttering at first, unable to get the momentum needed to get the aircraft's wheels rolling on the tarmac outside the hangar. But he eventually summons the inner strength necessary to drag the helicopter over 10 meters, or 32 feet and 9 inches, beating his intended target of 8 meters. Well, I would say that we now all have something to aspire to, however, none of us can do that, so maybe we should just take up hula hooping on the subway. And make sure that if you're attacked, that you act as chivalrously and as dignified as possible, and continuously scream for help. Don't defend yourself. No, urinate on yourself, defecate, vomit if you can, and scream and plead and beg. Well, Targonauts, that's all I have for you this evening or morning or whenever it is you're listening to this program. Thanks for listening. Congratulations, you are the 1% who make it all the way through the program without turning me off in disgust and saying swear words. Remember to find me on Facebook, on Twitter, jdate.com, Tinder, Grindr, farmersonly.com. I don't know how you're listening, but you can listen at tugboatcalhoun.com. You can go to Podbean, you can go to the iTunes store, you can go to Blueberry, you can go to TuneIn Radio, any podcast directory that is a real, reputable podcast directory has the Voice of Reason with Tugboat Calhoun there. So if you're looking for more ways to listen, you can download me, upload me, inload me, front load me. I think those are all the ways. Anyway, Tuggernuts, thanks for listening. Remember to always wipe front to back. I'm Tugboat Calhoun, and nobody loves you like I do.